Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to see you all here. Thank you all so much for taking the time. I can already see some of you in the chat right now saying hello to everyone. So thank you so much for doing that. We can see my good friend Christian in just outside Cambridge. We've got Claire in Cambridge as well. Louisa in St. Albans. Jake, the famous Jake Potter in London. Lex in Kent. Helen in Hertfordshire. The list goes on. If you haven't already, do pop in the chat feature where you're watching from. It's always a thrill to know where everyone is in the world. If you haven't already, while you're doing this, because as an example, Callum Harris, I'm calling you out because you've put your chat feature to hosts and panelists only. And what that means is that only we can see your messages, Thomas and I. So if you follow the instructions on screen, you head to your chat feature, you'll see a little toggle, switch it over to everyone, then everyone can see your messages and we'll have the most lovely time today. Melissa over in Houston, Texas, thank you for being here. I can see Stacy in Nova Scotia, Canada as well. We're bringing in the global folks, which is fabulous. Today, our guest is the very, very fantastic Thomas Barta. He's a human of many achievements and accolades, including being a former partner of McKinsey, a fellowship leadership dean at the Marketing Academy, an honorary fellow at the Marketing Society, but perhaps most importantly, a co-founder or founder of the Marketing Leadership Masterclass. On your screen right now, you'll see 2 QR codes. On the left, or on my left, the one with Marketing Leadership Masterclass under it will take you to this fabulous course. And then if you'd like to know more about it, then I actually wrote a comprehensive review of the course, which you can find out. My own opinions, having taken the course, as a quick summary, then I'd really recommend it. So definitely take the time to check out that. Today is all about navigating the changes that AI will bring. And like, importantly, today isn't like, here's a top 10 tips for doing whatever. It's about the mindset shift that will require us as marketers to sort of go into this next generation of AI-based stuff. We'll have a talk and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. So if you would like to get your questions in to Thomas, then use the Q&A feature, which is found down in the taskbar down below our faces today. Also, before we get going, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. So this week's featured sponsor is Redgate Software. Now, I used to work at Redgate Software's building. I didn't used to work for them themselves, but in their space. And I can attest to a wonderful culture and a company that's on a real rocket ship in terms of growth. They're presently hiring for a product marketing manager and a social media marketing manager, which is a 12-month fixed-term contract. So if you're interested in that, that's the QR code. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds before thanking our other sponsors, Frontify, Exclaimer, Cambridge Marketing College, and Redgate once again. We speak about them all on rotation as we go through the season. With all that said, I'm now going to hand over to the very brilliant Thomas, who's going to take us through a talk on the mindset required going forwards in this crazy AI world. Thomas, it's over to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Joe, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. And thanks for the QR codes, which I should have scanned to see what it actually leads to. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
And, indeed, we titled this, If AI Had the Answer, What Was Your Question? And your colleague James Sandbrook saw this and he posted on LinkedIn, says Thomas is talking about writing prompts. And I think it's fascinating, right? Because this is what the whole debate currently is about. And no, we're not going to talk about writing prompts. In fact, that is the easy part of AI. It's the tools and the techniques of the doing of it. I want to talk about the more important part of AI that I believe more important for you, which is the leadership challenges that come with it. And I like to take us away today a little bit from the AI buzz and the noise, and I like to zoom out and look at AI from a bird's eye perspective. And in particular, I'd love to touch on the impact of AI. So what is it actually going to do? We'll talk about Zooming and why this is an important leadership technique in AI times. Also talk about creativity and why the new currency for leaders, especially marketing, will be to answer great questions. And helping you deal with the AI challenge, I think what we're going to do today, probably more than we normally do at these talks, is indeed try and test some Zooming. And this is a technique that CEOs use a lot. When there's a new challenge, when there's something completely brand new coming in, you don't know what the impact will be. How do you zoom? That is, zoom out, see the big picture, and then zoom in on the stuff that really matters to you. And zooming for you will be hugely important, because that's probably going to be your way in this crowded, in this noisy AI world where everybody and their browser will talk about AI this year, for you to make some sense and be able to make your own decisions, which is important. But before we do, we got to talk about kitchen towel. Now, many of you don't know, some years ago, I was a brand manager for Kitchen Towel, and I often thought this product only really exists to make every other product look really interesting. People actually don't care. And that reminds me of one of the biggest learnings in business, and that when a new technology comes around, and I'll talk about it in a second, great questions beat great answers. Because at the time, you know, that revolution in paper towel was something they called through air dried. So what you do is you're gonna rebuild everything, and again, you're gonna take a towel in the machine and then you blow hot air through it, and then it makes the fibers stand up and it becomes really soft, really, really soft. Now, I worked in this category for a little while and I had some doubts. I know that the engineers, it was literally everywhere, all the magazines, all the like, it's all about, you know, through air dried, revolution, breakthrough, it's going to change everything. Again, I had some doubts, but we made a $3-digit million bet to buy hot air machines and become the market leader. And it was a complete failure. Consumers did not care. They did what they always did. They bought the blue pack and the green one was the flowers. We had the perfect answer for a question that nobody had asked. Many of you remember the first years of Yahoo, right? This was the world's first search engine. They tried to catalog every book, every website, partly by hand, until it became so clumsy and slow. And then Google came around and asked a better question. And the question Google had asked is, how can we make the world's information accessible and useful? And they built an algorithm that picked up things much faster, keeping it way simpler. Google won because Google, at the end of the day, asked a better question. And then you have seen the current movie. I normally don't talk about BlackBerry because most of you weren't born when it was around, but now there was the movie, so maybe people probably picked that up. But remember, you know, for years, BlackBerry had built these little devices to make email possible over email, to use as little data as possible on the networks, because that was the big thing at the time. You know, use little data as possible, still have email. And they kept doing that until AT&T and Verizon realized, well, wait a minute, there's money in selling data. We'll just build more networks and we can sell money. And BlackBerry hadn't seen that coming. No, so it wasn't the keyboard, you know, the keyboard wasn't the thing. It was the fact that BlackBerry continued to answer the wrong question for the time. And AI will soon going to change the way you work in a very big way. In the same way, it's a completely new technology coming in. And it's fascinating what's happening. I'm working with a couple of firms right now. We're building the marketing teams for that future. And it's captivating. You know, look at Salesforce Einstein. The way it's going to help you build leads is completely changed from the way you currently do it. When you look at what Adobe does to real-time personalization on the website, user by user by user at scale, using AI, it's absolutely fantastic. And if you complain to American Airlines about your flight and then Gemma Flint is answering you, that's just AI cost saving at work. So these things are going to happen. There's no news, you know that. The question is, what's going to be the impact of AI? Now, let's look at the first thing, yeah? What's going to be the actual impact of AI? Big picture, yeah? Let's start with something really simple. AI is using a lot of water and electricity. Seriously. I mean, Microsoft alone, they're using like 2,000, someone calculated that, 2,500 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water last year, right, in their data centers. It's massive. And Google, right, same. And the more AI we have, the more we have it. So there is an impact. Nobody really talks about like a lot, but that's one of the impacts we'll see. Okay, let me not moment. There will be impact on jobs. And it's probably too small to read what I put up here, but think about it this way. If you take all the jobs and put them on a long list, you know, and say, okay, how is this job being impacted by AI? And then there is something that's a dark blue thing you see here, which is no impact. And there is something they put here like in light blue, which is, you know, some impact. And then there is something that's in gray, that's like likely replacement. Yeah. Now, even without looking at the actual jobs, just from far away, you see that there's a lot of light blue. That means for a lot of jobs, it will just sneak in there. Some jobs will stay dark blue, like if you're building like houses, right? You're putting bricks on, yeah, that's going to be hugely impacted by AI. But if you work in legal, for example, or in some administrative roles, you get all that gray, which is that's going to go away. AI is going to take over. But at the end of the day, most jobs will somehow be impacted by AI. That's one. Now, people estimate that AI will add 1.5% of job productivity. Now, how do people calculate job productivity? What does that mean? What does that? So first off, job productivity can happen by jobs being replaced. So, right? No longer needed. Bye-bye, gone. You know, the telegraph people, you know, in the old times, you know, brokered the phone calls, right? It's all gone, and so on. And for AI, people believe it's going to happen. It may not be massive overall, right? In some departments, quite big, but overall, it may not be like the biggest thing. The second source of productivity is of productivity growth is in-job productivity. So you do a certain type of job, you just do it faster or more efficient or more effective. And that's where people see the biggest or forecast the biggest impact of AI is that it will enable jobs to be way more effective. And I think many of you are already witnessing this. I mean, from the very basic things like, can you do that spell check for me, you know, in like seconds, or make a birthday card for my mom, you know, featuring a dinosaur, right? And it just comes out. So a couple of things just become faster. And then there is new jobs, which are technically taken away from productivity because obviously they're adding costs. That's a little bit unknown. For AI, there's a big question mark here. There's a big debate out there whether ultimately it will be a lot of new jobs or whether not. I think we don't know how this pans out. But the thing we need to remind ourselves of, when the job productivity that people expect from AI will all come through making existing jobs more productive. That's quite important to keep in mind. So it's not a matter of all the jobs will go away and, you know, be replaced by machines. That's not what people are currently expecting. And there's another question of when. When is this going to happen? And technology normally has a time lag between new technology and then real productivity. You know, we had the very early on, you know, the motor and machines, right? It took about 25 years for that effectiveness to really show in productivity in jobs. When we had the computer, it took about 15 years before productivity really went up. That was already shorter. Now for AI, we don't quite know. We don't quite know when we see in the big productivity waves. So it could be that right now there's way more AI coming in than we see productivity actually happening. And again, that's an important picture because for every CEO, when they think about investing in AI, they invest because they want more productivity, but it's a little bit unclear when it's going to happen. There'll be a time lag. Yeah. So you got to be aware of these things. And the other thing that AI is going to do, and that for you is quite important, AI is going to destroy what they call the knowledge economy. The knowledge economy goes like this. We send you to school and we teach you things and we throw you a test and you ace the memory test and we hand you an A. Many A's will get you into university. You study medicine or law and to memorize even more and collect more A's. And these A's are the golden ticket for a job at a law firm. We could sell you knowledge to clients for about $2,000 an hour. And then comes AI. And they're going to cancel the knowledge economy because all of a sudden the most complex answers to the toughest questions will be accessible to literally everyone almost for free all the time. Yeah, how to make this banana-shaped car more aerodynamic? Well, here's the answer, literally for free. Which of these 10,000 images work best with our advertising copy? Right, here's the answer, literally for free. What are the legal risks in this 100-page contract? Here are the answers, right? Literally for free. Knowledge is power, not anymore. Answers will be available to everyone all the time and literally for free. And that's making the questions suddenly so much more important. Because if the systems can give you the answers, the entire importance and the intelligence will actually shift to the questions. Now, we can say this to make a good keynote or an interesting keynote. Let me show you the proof. Boston Consulting Group did a fascinating experiment. They asked 758 consultants to tackle 2 business problems. And then one group could use ChatGPT-4, the latest version. Actually, in fact, since yesterday, it's no longer the latest version, but it was until yesterday. And the other group could not use ChatGPT. So let me show you what they did. So here was the first problem, is you're a footwear company. And we wanted to come up with new shoes. Innovate new shoes. Steps to launch, a slogan for each target segment, and 3 methods to test the slogans, and the final press release. And then at the end of this, the people who run the experiment, they looked at the results. And what they saw is the ChatGPT-4 group won this. They were over 40% more productive, in fact, 44% more productive. They won this very clearly. Simple innovation job. Generative AI helped you become more productive. Okay, second challenge, solve a business issue. The fashion company has 3 brands, growth is slow. The CEO wants to know which brands to invest in. Listen to these insider interviews, analyze these spreadsheets, find the underlying issues, recommend which brands to focus on. And again, at the end of this, they looked at the results. Now, here came the big surprise. The ChatGPT group lost this. They were 22% less productive. Why is that? ChatGPT can find nuggets in spreadsheet. There's millions of business plans. It's very simple. Systems like ChatGPT-4 and other generative AI systems, even the really best ones right now, what they're not good at is asking these edgy questions, these creative questions, these tough questions that help you find the real challenges in some basic data. It finds the basic pattern, but what it doesn't find, what it can't really do well is it zoom out and really look at this from a completely different perspective, ask some really polarizing things. And that's the creativity that the systems can't deal with. You cannot out AI. Yeah? To thrive in an AI world, if you thrive on answers, if you're trying to give the best answers in the world, these systems will very easily overtake you because they're better at this. But you will excel if you are able to do what AI can do well, which is ask great questions, ask creative questions, ask provocative questions. Because great questions are what helps us around you make better decisions. And great questions help you ultimately define your own path. And let's look at some applications for this and why this is so important. Right, sorry. I'm always slow on the charts. I should have my strap line to present it. Great questions made great answers. That chart should have shown up during my last little piece of talk. No, but seriously, there's a lot of pressure right now on CEOs, on business leaders around the world to do something with AI. And it's massive, yeah. And it's not because they want to, I mean, maybe they want to, but there's also a lot going on when you think about this. If you come into these, I mean, if you're a CEO or a CFO or a marketing leader or department leader, and everybody in the world is talking about ChatGPT and Einstein and Copilot, Google is already rebranding Bard to Gemini, as if that was a good name. You know, people like Gary Vaynerchuk telling you don't miss, right, the AI advantage. In fact, he also told you not to miss out on NFTs, only then a year later to tell you that actually he didn't never mean that, and he meant that 97 to 97% would go zero, and he already knew that. So there's a huge pressure. Also, all the agencies will now come up with pictures that look like this, right? I know you've seen them many times. Suddenly it's all being created by these AI systems. And unsurprisingly, if you're a CEO, the pressure is huge to do something with AI, right? You can't. In fact, what's happening, this is a chart, you can't read the details from far. This is the number of CEOs who promise big moves on generative AI in earning calls, right? It just shoots up. You cannot say as a CEO, we're going to do AI. You have to say, we're going to go big on this, it's going to be massive. And what this leads to is something that the marketunist has so nicely written and painted, is that we are in a situation where people are now honestly saying, you know, there's a lot we don't know about AI, only that we want to adopt it everywhere as fast as we possibly can, right? So that's what's going to happen. And what will happen also is that many of you will or have already experienced something that we call Gmut. This is now we're really in the leadership court now. When these things are happening, you get a lot of Gmuts. Do you know what a Gmut is? It's a get me one of those. You know, you have someone in your company, typically very senior, coming really excited and say, get me one of those, you know. We want more cats in our advertising because I think it's a really good idea. Let's do more TikTok, you know. Let's use Gen AI in marketing. Get me one of those. Now, this is a very common leadership challenge that many of you will have seen. It's either your bosses or it could be your clients. So what do you do when that happens to you? How do you deal with a Gmut? In the masterclass, we have a whole section on it because it happens like a lot, right? So now here's the thing. If you are a great leader, even if you're a very young leader and you want to be a great leader, is you use that as an opportunity to help that person make a better decision. How do you do that? Well, number one, if someone senior or your client comes in and is really excited about something, a good way to help them make better decisions is not to say, well, I'm not sure, that's a really stupid idea, because that will make you an outsider and nobody wants to work with a smart ass in reality, yeah? So you do this differently. First of all, I share some of that excitement, right, in a positive way. You go home, you write on a piece of paper, okay, option one. That's obviously option one that was given, right? And then really what you do is you're going to start to do some zooming. We talked about zooming earlier, right? Now we're going to do some zooming. And for these business things, when they're very big, you do CEO zooming. This is a Faber-Castell pencil, and they're making pencils since 1761, you know, 6,500 people, 120 countries. They make great pencils. And to stay in business, they had to ask themselves many times these CEO zooming questions. And what are these questions? Well, what are we doing as a business? How can we attract customers more profitably? And how can we make what we make faster, more efficient? These are very basic questions. Now think about the mood that just came along. Think about these questions, and then think about some real answers to this. Yeah, so how could AI, for example, help the person that you've just met help these things in reality? Is it going to help their business? Is it going to help attract maybe more people? Can this be efficient, effective? And that will allow you to then go out and read blogs and speak to agencies and find solutions. And then, you get options 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And that's when you meet back with the people you want to help make a better decision and say, you know what? I thought about your point. I think it's great. So I phrased the question as, how will AI help us grow faster? And then I looked at this, and here's 3 options I found that are very interesting. Should we look into this? And chances are, if you intrigue the people that came your way, is that they come back and say, you know what, that's a really good idea, let's dig deeper. It's 2024. You cannot tell people what to do, but you can help them perhaps make better decisions. And the same is true for your own team. I mean, there is a lot of excitement in marketing teams. This is from our latest AI survey we did. And over 70% of marketers, over 90% of marketers worldwide really excited about AI, and 79% very nervous, right? There's a lot of nervousness in teams right now. So, and again, right, this is the moment. Yeah, this is where you as a leader can help. How can you help people alleviate these fears? And also, how can we help not have another digital divide? Remember the digital divide? When suddenly there were the cool people who knew digital, and there were the stupid marketers who obviously weren't that good in digital. And what it created at the end of the day is an overspend in what we call tactical digital marketing, or some people call it performance, which I hate as a terrible term because it would assume the rest doesn't perform. But we have an overspend in this because the cool people currently rule the world. Now, that can easily happen with AI again, right? You could have the people who understand AI and the ones who don't, and then you have another digital divide. We can't have that. Yeah. So you use Zooming to help your team find better answers. Get your team to Zoom in and say, hey, what are we doing as a business? How can we attract customers more profitably? How can we make what we make faster, more efficient? And how can AI help? What do you think? Get everybody together and discuss this. And then what people do, and we've done some very nice experiments, and that worked beautifully. We said, okay, everybody can trial 1 or 2 AI tools for 4 weeks, right? Everybody. And then in 4 weeks, let's all come back together and share. Yeah, nobody's being left out of this. And then we're all sharing what we've learned, all in the background, in the context of the Zooming questions we just asked. And then together we make a decision as a team which 2 or 3 tools we are all going to try now, because we believe they're a really big deal. And then you together build these skills. What will happen is 3 things. First of all, you will have had a discussion as a team what actually matters in AI. You will not be perfect, but you will have had that discussion. Second, everybody will have had a stake in this because everybody tried things. Third, you will have had a discussion on what we should do as a team. And that's huge. And fourth, because now everybody keeps building skills, nobody is left out, which is so hugely important. We got that wrong with digital, and let's not get that wrong again. And Zooming will help you do that. So if you can, make sure you're able to use Zooming, both for senior people and for your team. I want to leave it there. We're going to do a lot of work on this on the masterclass right now, because that is really the topic that people are really struggling with. And I want to end with one big idea. You will become AI enabled. But whether that's going to work out for you depends a lot on you. Recall June 27. I know some of you weren't born, but in June 27, Steve Jobs held up and said, "This is one more thing by the iPhone." And it promised to be the biggest time saver ever. use Google, book flights, check accounts, hail a cab in no time. Massive time saver. If you think about it, how this was done before. Unfortunately, it kind of didn't work out this way. It appears that, opening your letterbox 50 times a day is really addictive. It's like a game, We make photos of sushi, things that we had for dinner. There's this great, I'll show you, there's a lovely cartoon about it. Actually, what happened in reality is that people became more effective and less productive. This is a campaign article, and they figured that marketers are now spending more time reporting than creating, right? There's all these wonderful tools that we now have that's supposedly saving our time. Yeah, and that is because you need to look at, I'm going to show you this. You're going to show this around. This is the cartoon, and I love this. The person saying, this is the future millennial grandparents, care to see pictures of every meal I've ever ordered in restaurants in the past 45 years, right? This is the stuff we're doing because we have these effectiveness tools. Now, here's the point. AI is going to make you more effective. You will become AI enabled. Salesforce is pushing it in. Google is pushing it into their workspace. Adobe is pushing it in everywhere. Microsoft going to get rid of Clippy and going to launch Copilot so you can write presentations faster. That's all going to happen. AI will free up a ton of time. The question is, how are you going to use it? I mean, you could automate your sushi photos or the sushi photo collection if you want to, right? You can sort it faster than ever before. You can do all sorts of things. The question is, will you be able to use the spare time that you could possibly generate through generative AI for something powerful? And that's not going to be very easy. But I have a reason for you and an idea for how you could use it. I want to go back to this Boston consulting experiment. Remember, innovate some new shoes or solve a business problem. AI made people generally more effective. But the people who did the research also looked at something else. They said, okay, can we look at creativity? Obviously, right, the system has just innovated lots of new things, shoes and slogans and everything. And when they looked at the data, you know what they found is that the ChatGPT group was, in terms of creativity, minus 41%. The systems kept churning out really decent ideas, but they were all really, really similar. Because AI, the way it's being, by nature, the way it's being operating, the way it's being trained, keeps out churning similar answers, right? Because it builds on what it knows. That's why when you type in business person, you get a white male, because that's what it sees, right? If you want a female business person, you have to say female business person. If you want a business person of color, you have to say, right? If you don't, it will keep churning out white guys. And the same is true with many other things that supposedly AI is so wonderful at creating. It will create really nice, mediocre advertising. And you're all experts in marketing, especially communication, and we know, right, what really moves the dial in marketing. It's often the things at the fringes, the edgy things, the things that stand out, the things that are unique. And that's where you can beat AI still really easily. Yeah. So creativity isn't just a word. Creativity, asking creative questions, asking edgy questions, focusing on the questions, the why. That is what's going to make you more productive and more effective in an AI world. So if you ever thought about your creativity and you ever thought, you know what, I could probably do more of it, I believe now's the time. So with this, I'm going to pause, leave a lot of these answers that you had in your mind completely unanswered, probably thrown out more questions than answers. and happy to start a dialogue.
Love it. Thank you very much, Thomas. I love your calm delivery, taking us through that journey over the past 31 minutes of prompting thoughts for folks watching in today. So thank you very much. Is endlessly appreciated. I think there's a calming presence which is given to placing the tools in context. There is a lot of hype, as you well pointed to, but to associate that with a use for business and placing that in context, I think is really important. I think often when we reflect on AI, I was even watching the demos of ChatGPT 4.0, I think they're calling it yesterday.
Yeah.
It was interesting because like they had one scene where two AIs were speaking to each other, and it was impressive, but it was a really boring conversation. And I think there's something right there which is to your point around creative prompts, about asking the right questions and the role of humanity in all of this. We can't seek to over rely on these things, because while they will get better, they will change, and we can't deny that. There's an interesting thing as part of it, which is there is still a lot of specialness around what we do and how we do it.
I like your impressive but boring. This is a very nice summary.
It's it's I had a bit of a shift on it yesterday. So folks, we've got a little bit of time for Q&A right now, so if you haven't already popped a question in the Q&A that you would like answering, then please do. And likewise, if you see a question that you would like to be answered, because it's already there, give it a thumbs up, and we'll make sure that we try to prioritize those questions. With that thought in mind, however, if I could start with one of my own, because I feel like that zooming technique is something that is a really key takeaway from today's session. And I wanted to spend a little bit more time on that, because to me, as an observation on today's session, if we're saying one of the key skill sets in marketers continuing to be relevant and useful in an organization is asking great questions, then zooming felt important to that. So could you speak about cultivating a zooming mindset? Because that felt both reassuring on a personal level, but actually useful as well on a very practical basis. So how have you sort of approached zooming over the years, and are there any practical tips you can give to do that?
So when you get hired as a brand manager, junior brand manager for brand X, right? You get projects, and you look at some spreadsheets, and people want a plan, and then, right? So you're in the deep in it. I got to find an answer and present and have good ideas. Mindset, and that's important, right? Because this is how we all learn. We all learn by doing things. We learn by being in the weeds, yeah, and that's important. And then we need to learn to grow out of this, and this takes a little bit of work, because that's the place where we feel at home, yeah. This is the stuff we know, and then it is all unknown. When you face the unknown, you could, of course, because of training, we immediately like, oh, well, what's the answer? What's the answer? And zooming is something that, first of all, you make yourself aware of. And the first awareness you need to create is that for most real issues in the world, you probably won't have a good answer. Yeah, so don't feel bad about it. Yeah. And then it is really a technique that you learn. It's a bit like other things you learn, like, like doing some certain sport or something. You need to learn, say, okay, what is the biggest picture view you could take on this? And in an organization, the biggest picture view tends to be, okay, let's step back. If this was my company, what would I do? That's a very typical, like very big picture. And that's what a lot of CEOs do. They have to step on. It's like, I'm not the CEO, I'm like the owner now. They have to get back. And what is where does this sit? And this is important, because that only then can you start to put this in places. And all of a sudden you think, well, maybe that's a really small thing. the whole thing, there's also is this an anger management. You know, there's something very similar. When you're very angry at someone once taught me is ask yourself, will I be angry about this in 4 years' time?
Mhm.
And then for many of the things, no, I won't be. Right? So, and then, oh, okay, so it's obviously not important. So it is actually something you just need to ask yourself. It's a very conscious effort. It's like meditation, other things, you just do it. Yeah. So when you get stuck, zoom out. A few ways to do it. You could also get other people to help you zoom out. You could other people to help you zoom out your perspective. And then only then when you have a view, then you can zoom back in again. And that's important. You need to do both. Great CEOs, as much as great marketers, need to do both constantly, all the time. Because it's not in marketing that you now no longer need the detail and you can move on to only the big picture. It's complete bollocks because you still need to know, right? When this thing doesn't work, yeah, what's the issue? Yeah.
Yep.
It is that agility. So you asked me about how to get this mindset. The first thing is you need to want to do it. Then you need to basically just remind yourself and then practice it. And it won't take you long. It's not rocket science.
No. I love that, but I think what I appreciate about that answer as well is you making the point about when to zoom in as well, because I think there's a temptation sometimes, particularly, I think we're in a really good spot in the marketing world right now where there is a more general awareness of stuff like strategy, and people being proponents of strategic thinking, that we speak about strategy, and then someone forgets to do the tactics, or and the same exists the other way around. And so actually, to sort of have a definitive point of like, okay, this is when we zoom in, this is when we
It's not a
zoom out.
lie, right? The older you get, the more you have big picture. It's that.
Yeah.
And it's your agility.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's really interesting. It's not an easy trick as well. I can say as a new parent that that's sort of the splitting your headspace between different things in lots of cases feels like a really useful skill. But I feel quite excited to sort of take that mindset. And there's a couple of people I know who are watching in today who I think of as high level thinkers, but like there's an encouragement for them to maybe zoom in more, and maybe the other way around, which is really useful. So thank you. Let's take the next question from Stephanie, the amazing Stephanie. Actually, I like Stephanie a lot. So Stephanie says in the Q&A, and I'll leave this to your interpretation. So Stephanie says, does asking the right questions involve detailed input or straight to the point bullets? Have you found either way more effective relating to generic content creation, or writing a brief or summary reports, or stuff like that? And I think this is a question about questioning styles and how we ask the right question in terms of phrasing and making folks sort of get towards the best output.
People remember from your questions, and especially I think the question relates to talking with other people. They remember less your style. What they will remember is if there a big idea. And a good question is more about a big idea than about the style that you deliver it in. So this is almost like you can work on your PowerPoint presentation and you can work on the colors, right? But is the idea a relevant one? And I would, for big questions like this, and if the business questions or others, right? I would almost like leave the format outside completely and say, okay, what is actually my main point here? What's the main thing? How can I make a difference? And that's how people remember. Because there are extroverts and introverts, and people have bullet points, and other people write 3D storytelling, whatever things. What people remember is the big idea. So I think the format matters somewhat. I think the idea is relevant. I don't think I've answered that question, but
well, let me follow up then.
That comes into my mind.
Well, let me follow up in a slightly different way then, which is that finding of the big idea with one's questioning. We've spoken about zooming as a technique for doing so. but it strikes me that that's actually a skill in itself, finding a big idea, feeling comfortable that that's a big idea too. And you identified in your presentation some fabulous questions, and you were quite instructive, ask these 3 questions and we'll have a greater meeting. How do you start to settle on those things as big ideas? Because I'm not sure that everyone kind of thinks that way. But that is clearly something that potentially comes a little bit more naturally to you, or is something you've built a range of experiences which enables you to find those big ideas?
I mean, a big idea is a big name, right? It feels like it's just like, life-changing, radical. This isn't always the point. Think about the Boston Consulting examples, right? They were just looking for a solution for a business. So, I mean, it's things like this. And how do people get to these things? Well, first off, Zooming is one, I think is a really good one. The second one is creative brainstorm. I mean, it's really basic techniques that has to have delivered amazing things. So many agencies I work with, so many clients, sometimes they just sit back and they dream a little and think about some really out of the box ideas. 80% of those are crap in the end and you don't use them, but there's the 1 or 2 that really make a difference. But you need to have the headspace. Yeah. It's almost like you need to deliver a presentation and some people start writing a PowerPoint and they haven't even figured out what the idea is. You can't save that anymore. We need to give ourselves the headspace to step back and say, well, let me think about this and then we take different perspectives. And there's so many creative brainstorming techniques, and there are more people here on the line who have these handy at their disposal. Yeah, this is why the best creative agencies create space for their people, not to deliver presentations, but to actually dream up things. And we need to do more of that. And it feels quite like a contradiction in a world where everything has to happen really fast. Yeah. But that's now the leadership's effort, is to create that space for yourself. And that means it can't be email. You can't have notifications on your phone. And no, don't take photos of the process because you'll be busy, right, making this ready for Facebook. So you have to, there are too many creative people here. I don't explain that to you. But I think we are having less of this thinking space, and that's what we need to create.
I love that. Well, and it reminds me of a quote from Jeremy Connell-Waite a couple of years ago, which stuck with me. And he was speaking in the context of storytelling and communications. But he said sometimes you just need to make the space to stare at the clouds. And I found that quite beautiful as a quote. But I think you're true to the reality of most of the folks probably on this call, that we don't make the space for those things. And so I'm kind of reflecting as we're going here, and I can kind of feel that this talk, these 50 minutes spent together is kind of a 50 minutes shoulders relaxing session, and sort of an encouragement to kind of step away from the hype, realize it for what it is, zoom out, zoom in when you need to, but to do both. So I find that really reassuring personally. So thank you.
Where do you get your best ideas?
Me, I it's the standard.
Well, you don't really have good ideas normally, but I mean, just in case. Right? Where are they from? Where do you get them?
It's the dog walk. It's bouncing the baby at 4 a.m. in the morning. It's, as James says in the chat feature right now, I give them to him.
There you go, right? We all have, by the way, this is very personal, right? People also have different moments. Huh? So I would also ask everybody here, like, when did you have your last good ideas? I know we're getting very generic now in brainstorming, but I think it matters. It's a big deal.
No, it matters, and I think it's a part of the conversation specifically around AI that we don't often have, and so I'm grateful for the conversation going this way. So thank you. Let's take a slightly wider question from Alice, who starts off with a compliment. Who says, "I loved your book, The 12 Powers of a Marketing Leader. It's been helpful for shifting my mindset from execution to strategy and focusing on ROI. But what do you think is the number one thing you can do to boost your skill set to aim towards a marketing leadership position? whether related to AI or something else?
So why does someone get promoted? It's a good question, right? You're a boss. Why do you promote someone, right, into a new role? I assume that's a little bit behind the question, because if you have the skills, you also need a platform. Well, maybe people promote you because they really love you, or because they think you really, if they don't know it now, you get really angry. But for most people, they'll promote you because you help solve an issue. And that's where the creative thinking comes in. People remember you in organizations for things that you've changed or shifted or moved along. And that, to me, is the way to think about this. So what I would think about, what's the real leap I could help that organization make as a consultant or as a client? Forget my current projects. Well, what would really move the needle? And the people who are following projects like this are normally the ones that get recognized. It's a bit more risky, in all fairness, but those are the ones that actually are making the leap, because people love to promote them because it helps them solve an issue. So think about it this way. Yeah? For the organization you work in, for the client you work for, step back and say, if they could, this is this one big thing we could do, and I throw myself behind this, what would it be? It's normally a good way to do it.
I love that. And is that, so I'm trying to reconcile the ideas of today's talk with the answer that you just gave, which is, on one hand we have questions, and then on the other we have, maybe it's not the other, maybe this is an unfair phrasing, but someone who comes with solutions to a certain extent. And so would your advice to someone like Alice be in this circumstance to go in and say, here's the big question that I've tried to solve, and here's the answer to that?
For some answers.
Mm-hmm.
Or can I solve them?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
General Mills, for example, never had a CMO for years. And the market addicts came in and said, you know what? I believe here are certain things we need to solve. Here are the big issues that are unsolved in digital, and so on and so on. I believe we really need answers. Would you mind if I lead that as your new CMO? And the board agreed. Yeah, he showed that there is a challenge. He showed that, not the full plan, but he wanted to move there. And people said, you know what? I love this. This is the leadership we want. And that's how he got, I mean, this is an example, yeah. I don't think you will have the perfect answers to all. It's not that. It's more that you're clear where you want to go, and then you have some thoughts. But people ultimately reward leadership. They reward people who take initiative for things that matter. That's how most people get promoted.
I love that. And it's the simplicity, again, I think I'm quite struck by how you're able to take it back to these fairly simple answers, but stuff that has
I'm in a business of simplification, obviously. That's
well, no, but there's a lot of power behind it. I think that leaves for interpretation in folks' context, which is important. Today has been more about mindsets than it has top 10 tips, as we said at the beginning. So that's important. Let's take the next question from Sam as we start to draw to a close. So Sam asks, and this is a real burst of positivity and optimism around the sort of AI scene, and it may be a zooming in question. But Sam asks, where do you personally think the biggest opportunity lies as a marketer in an increasingly AI-dominated world?
The real frustration the world has about marketing is that the profession has a terrible reputation for capturing knowledge and using it. So in medicine, right, if there's a new study that proves that a certain technique is effective worldwide, it gets adopted. In marketing, especially when it comes to how much we spend on what, and people keep reinventing the wheel because nobody cares about all the previous work. And we are, in terms of CEO trust, when it comes to marketing effectiveness, if the budget is well spent, blah, blah, blah. We're literally there where we were 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And technically, that's completely unnecessary. The entire overspend on tactical digital marketing is completely unnecessary. And the roots are very clear because it's simpler and because it's easier. And there's a huge amount of waste in the system. And I personally believe AI is an opportunity for the entire profession to get to grips with the effectiveness part. Because at one point, if there are more and more models around that try and figure stuff out, they'll find out everything that Google tells you, that Facebook tells you, that isn't correct. And you will get more and more behind this. You will have more and more benchmarks. You will have more and more data. And that is important because we get a handle on this, which we technically could already, but it's not happening. But so maybe the machines will take over, and that will hopefully free up the time for what we should spend more time on, which is creating these outstanding, edgy, effective, consumer-facing memories, fantastic products, experiences, things that really make a difference for people. While hopefully the machines will take care of the thing that marketers don't love as much, which is spending the money wisely to get the highest returns.
It speaks to the optimism of it all, which I really appreciate as a final note on this. Is the end of four episodes on AI, and I think we started with a very sort of like, it's here, and here's all this stuff, and then we've gone into the more tactical things. But I think, to use that as the final note on our little sort of series on AI, it's a lovely place to leave it. So thank you very much, Thomas. That's really appreciated. And thank you everyone for joining for all of these 4 sessions, but also today. If you'd like to know more about Thomas and his marketing leadership masterclass, then absolutely check out the QR code found right there. Well worth checking out, and I really enjoyed the experience, having been through it myself. Likewise, a big thank you to our featured sponsor for today. If you're looking for a marketing job, then take the time to check out Redgate. They're a lovely bunch of humans as much as anything else. And also a big thank you to Frontify, Disclaimer, Cambridge Marketing College and Redgate for making today possible. Thank you also to everyone for your lovely comments in the chat, and for once again just being really, really fabulous. You're endlessly appreciated, and of course the most important thing in this whole thing. So really, really fabulous. With all that said, we're taking a week break now, and then we're going to be returning in 2 weeks' time to start a season on not boring data, which will be an opportunity for us to explore data and application in hopefully a really practical way, which will hopefully help you do your job better, which is kind of the point. With all that said, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.
Thank you. See you.